So, hi everyone. Thank you for coming in today and spending time with us. Thank you, Jaspreet, as well. So, this is the last class, last week of the semester, which is the week 24. So, really, do appreciate everybody and thank you guys for being with us for the whole 12 weeks of this spring semester. So, for our announcements, again, for your workbook, please do submit if you can during the class or maybe after the class so that you don't have to spend the whole week thinking about it. But if you cannot, we do understand. But please make sure to submit it on Friday, at up until Friday, 5 p.m. And lastly is for our Ignite speaker series, for those who have attended the Ignite yesterday, Monday, please to submit your post survey to fully earn your another 1 point. So that's 2 points. One if you attended with your cameras on, and another 1 point if you will submit your post survey with which due date is this Friday as well, 5 p.m. So again, if you have any camera or audio issues, please do let us know, me or Nina, student support, so that we can consider your participation and attendance points. Also, if you cannot participate through audio, please do make sure to participate through chat. And I think that's it. Thank you so much, Jaspreet.
All right, thank you, Dan. How's everyone doing? Tired? Good. People who are eating food are good. I got a thumbs up from them. Some Matthew's like, blah, it's all right. Tired. See a lot of tired faces, I feel like. Some alive. All right, well, today's the last class, and I want to keep this very informal. Not that the other classes have been formal by any means, but I want to hear from you guys, right? Usually I do a lot of talking, and you're sitting there listening to me, probably getting bored, sleepy, but I want to hear. We're going to have a PowerPoint presentation to kind of follow, but it really is kind of like a summary of everything we talked about throughout the semester, right? And I really want to hear from each and every one of you today in terms of what stood out for you guys in this entire semester that we covered, right? All the different topics that we covered. And as a refresher on the slides, there will be the headers of the topics, like each lesson, what it was about, so that you can jog your memory about, like, all right, yeah, this lesson I thought was good. This was interesting. This one I kind of struggled to understand, or this one I actually did apply and I loved it. So we'll go through a list. I will call out your names so that we get everyone. And some point during the class, I want to hear from you answering any one of those questions. So hopefully you guys aren't feeling shy today and energized enough to give me at least a 1 sentence answer. All right, so let's get the PowerPoint presentation up, please. And also, this is going to help youth champions as well, right, in terms of seeing how they should modify these classes going forward. So whatever your input is throughout the semester too, right, you fill out those surveys, which is really great. But also sometimes I know there are prompts that you answer to in the survey, right? But there might be things outside of that that you think of that are like, well, this can be improved slightly this way, or I wish we talked about this topic. I was really curious about this topic, right? That's not a question in the survey. So let us know, shout it out. Hey, next time or for future, this is the topic that's really relevant to our cohort, right? In terms of age group or the classes that you're in. And it'd be great if you guys talked about this topic in the future. So let us know if something comes to your mind while we're going through today's lesson. All right, let's get started. Sorry, I'm on the wrong screen over here, and you probably had the presentation up for a while, so my apologies. All right, so last week we covered the 4 agreements. We understood the meaning and significance of the 4 agreements. Anyone remember any one of the agreements? You can shout it out. None? Something about your word? being impeccable with your word, right? How you talk about someone else or to yourself about you, right? Being positive in that. So I hope you got a chance to apply or think about at least one of them. Hopefully that helped, and hopefully you're able to apply it to daily life and to your relationships. So, and we also develop strategies for incorporating the principles to improve communication, right, and build self-confidence. And the one that sticks out to me in terms of improving communication was don't make assumptions, right? We sometimes make assumptions based on body language of a person or whatever they texted or sent in an email instead of really trying to understand the emotion that was attached to that. So don't make assumptions, always talk to people, always try to keep the communication channel open so there's no room for any sort of miscommunication or misunderstanding, especially. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so learning objectives. And this can really be the entire semester you can throw in there, right? Synthesize the key lessons from the semester. Reflect on how these lessons apply to academic, personal, and professional goals. Commit to a personal behavior or habit that models the principles learned throughout the semester. So, and even if you pick one thing out of all of the things that we covered, I'd be happy if you even just picked one thing and then actually applied it to your daily life. So try to shoot for at least one, if not more. So key points, we're gonna talk about foundations for growth, practical tools for success, and continue to live inspired. Hopefully, I know for myself personally, even, some of these things you think, well, I know this already. um, you know, but for a lot of other things, the more deeper we got into some of the lessons, I learned a lot of new things too. Or sometimes it's in the back of your mind, right? But when you actually read about it, and then when I am explaining these things to you, I'm like, well, what about me? I know this is the right thing, or this is how I should be doing these things, but have I actually paused and thought about how I can implement these things? So this has actually helped me as well in terms of improving in my personal and professional life as well. So hopefully it has given you some pause and time to like, all right, how can I apply this in my life right now and going forward? All right, let's go to number 4. Okay, so here's the one where I was saying there'll be a little kind of recap of some of the topics that we covered. So take a look at this slide, right? Let me zoom in on this. There's mindset related fundamentals, reflecting and refocusing for the new year. That's where we started. We talked about investments. Remember compound interest, a fun topic. Taxes was another one we talked about. Then we talked about grit and resilience, how not to give up too easily. We talked about different leadership traits and values, practice and power of habits, accountability, business communication 101. We talked about resumes, cover letters, your online presence, how to conduct yourself professionally or introduce yourselves, exploring your natural strengths. The 4 agreements was the last one. So with that slide in front of you, let's hear what stuck out to you throughout the semester, or what you really identified with, or address the topic in any way you want. Totally your call. So let's start with, I'm going to skip the alumni for now. Let's start with Ashley. Let's go to Belen.
The one that stuck out to me was the leadership one because it showed how important it is to be able to step up.
All right, leadership and the importance of trying to understand how to step up and actually do that. Ashley said it's not working, but she can type. All right, that works too, Ashley, if you can do that. All right, let's hear from Christian. Christian Ayala.
I could choose the power of habits class stand out because it really impacted my life. showing how my small daily actions lead to big results over time. Building good habits is key to achieving my goals consistently and sustainably.
Perfect. That was a great answer. And a very detailed one. I like that. So, power of improving your habits, right? And even if it is small increments every day, it makes a huge difference over time. All right, let's hear from Clarine. Power of habits. All right. I feel like learning about that has helped me be more proactive in the things I want to accomplish and increase productivity as well, which I really appreciate. That's great. I like that you're already seeing benefits of that in your life, and it's not just some concept over here. All right, Daniel Hahn.
For me, I'll probably say the taxes one because I feel that one was like one of the most relevant for me, especially like in the real world where you have to like do your finances and stuff.
All right, great. Taxes. I love that. Love that someone picked a boring topic, but it is definitely very applicable to your life. No, there's no escaping it. Desiree.
I think for me, the most like important one was accountability because it's interesting to have to be not only responsible for like some of the stuff you do, but like for every like part of what you do, like the outcome. And I think it helps you grow and get more experience.
I love it. I love everyone's picking a different topic. Accountability is a really good one, and both for yourself and like people around you as well, right? Diana.
The class that stood out to me the most was the grit and resilience topic. This topic stuck with me the most because grit ensures that you stay consistent and committed to your goals, while resilience allows you to recover and adapt quickly. And I believe that this would be beneficial in the workforce because in many occasions, I know that just like in high school right now, I will probably face challenges.
Perfect. I love that answer too. Very detailed as well. Yes, grit and resilience is important in every aspect of your life, right? Don't give up too easily. All right, let's hear from Eduardo.
Um, a task that what stood out to me was problem solving and like knowing different like ways that people solve problems, and I think it stood out to me because like it helps me understand like when I work in groups that everyone like learns a different way and like they go through like different processes when trying to solve problems.
Yep, yep. Trying to understand not just your personal strengths, but also how everyone else approaches things differently, right? Edward.
You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. I think what really stuck onto me was the investment and interest lesson or compound interest as well.
Mhm.
I mean, it really stuck on me because obviously, having a discussion about like why having debt is like just a really horrible thing to have. And recently, I got even more interested when I had that discussion with my parents, talking about like, applying for a credit card and, like how to be more responsible with it.
That's great. So you were applying for the credit card?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you end up getting it?
I'm not sure yet. Still gotta
Oh,
check
so it's out
on
for
that.
approval.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, great. I think, yeah, that's hopefully that was a timely lesson, right? In terms of understanding um your responsibility, I guess, like towards how to use it more responsibly, and that it's just not money that's yours. You have to pay it back, and it comes with a price, right? If you don't pay it within the 30-day cycle, it adds interest to the debt that's outstanding. Okay, perfect. I love it. I think that's a great real life application of some of the things that we have looked at. Irma.
Something that like stuck out to me throughout like the lessons would have to be like the practice of like power of habits, because habits really do influence your life.
and depending on what type of habits you have, it can influence your life, good or bad.
Yep, it definitely has results, right? It definitely has real life results because it's going to impact your daily outcome, right? Smaller things at first, which kind of snowball into larger things. And before you know it, um, you know, you're at a point where you're like, I wish I'd done that 5 years ago or 10 years ago. So don't do that. Do it right now. You are all at the perfect time in your life to start focusing on these things. And that is the biggest asset you have on your side right now. So highly, highly encourage you all to apply these lessons. All right, let's go to Julian. Julian Gomez.
The one that stood out to me the most was probably the business communication 101. This was because it taught us about communication, but also gave us insight on what we might use in the future, and it could also apply to school when communicating on doing a project or something.
Great communication. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I know state schools definitely require you to take a business communications class because I went to a state school and it was a prerequisite to get in from a junior college. And then I think at the time UC's it was optional, but definitely take a speech class and a business communication class. It will really, really help you with your career going forward. All right, let's hear from Justin.
Something that stuck out to me was the mindset fundamentals, because I felt like in the beginning of the year I kind of came in with the mindset of a fixed mindset, but like kind of like after hearing about like other people's experiences throughout like all the other different lessons, it kind of like shaped me to think, oh, like challenges help me to grow. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. So yeah, mindset can change, right? You can change your mindset. It's not a fixed thing. And it's actually a very powerful tool to help enable change. All right. Let's hear from Kara.
I'd say I learned the most from like the four agreements. That one stuck out to me a lot. Because I thought it was interesting how like each one of them was so different, but like if you work on all four of them, like overall, like your life will just be better in a lot of different aspects.
Yeah, I think, yeah, even if you start with one, right, it kind of touches on the next one and the next one. So, all right, that's great. Maria?
I think for me, it's definitely a mix of building habits and taxes. Building habits is just something that I think plays a key role in everyone's life. You know, if you're not making a change, that means you're comfortable with the situation you are in right now. And with taxes, definitely coming like from an educational standpoint, we're not educated on taxes. So it really helped me kind of prepare for the future by learning something that's not taught in school.
Yeah, that's great. I think I really liked how you put the first part of that, your answer of it. If you're not making a change, right, you're basically comfortable with the status quo and you're not going to make any progress. And taxes, of course, yes, that's a very practical thing. And yeah, I don't think there is a class in high school or in junior college for that matter on it, if I'm not mistaken. And just personal finances in general, right? It applies to every one of us. However, it would be so nice to actually have that in the curriculum somewhere, especially at this stage where you're at right now, because you are going to start making those financial decisions, starting with possibly getting student loans, so, or credit cards, right? Like someone said earlier. Let's go to, where was I? Maria just talked. Mario.
I think the one that stood is taxes because it helped me able to prepare my understanding things on how to pay taxes.
Great. Wow, I didn't know taxes would be such a popular topic. All right, that's great. What about Matthew? Taxes also, because I thought the whole program was just to help learning styles, but this one helped me learn about managing my money. All right. Next one is Melanie.
Something that stood out to me was probably also the taxes and investments because, like mentioned earlier, it's something that we're not really taught at school. And then also exploring your natural strengths because it helps you on later on in the future with your career, like knowing what you're good at and how to communicate with others. Knowing if you're good at that, that can lead you on to a career related to that.
Perfect. What about Montserrat?
What I believe is, the class that stood out to me the most was the four agreements because I feel like I can implement this into my everyday life. I also agree by living life with integrity and only focusing on what you can control instead of stressing of which you can't.
I love that. Yes. I think a lot of people stress, including me, and I have to remind myself of this, like stress about unnecessary things which are out of your control. And that eats up so much of your energy and space, the wavelength you could be using for doing something more productive or thinking about something more productive, right? Or even just relaxing, which is also good for you. So I think, yes, perfectly put, we shouldn't be worrying about things, stressing about things which are out of your control. Anytime you find yourself spiraling into that whole situation, just pause and think about, is this something I can change or is this in my control? If the answer is yes, then go make that change. If the answer is no, tell yourself to stop worrying about it. All right, let's go to Paola.
The one that stood out to me was grit and resilience because it taught me that, especially when it comes to running, it was something I needed to work on because whenever I would have a bad race, it would affect me and I felt like I wouldn't be able to do good. But this taught me that I needed to just practice and learn from my mistakes.
Great. So I love that. Grit and resilience. Don't give up, right? If you just stop, you're never going to get better at it. If you keep continuing over time, you will. All right, remedy. The mic doesn't work, but one thing that stuck out was also grit and resilience because it shows me to be more consistent, and resilience shows me to keep going and not give up. And now I have a business and put this in my everyday life. Now, what kind of business do you have? All right, we'll wait for pastries. Wow, that's great. I wish I was in LA. I would definitely, if this was in person, ask you to bring some to class. That's amazing. Baking is actually, I have a love-hate relationship with baking. Baking can be very like good and like de-stressing and fun, but also sometimes if you get one small thing wrong, it just messes up the whole thing. So you have to be so precise. So that's really good. And I love watching the Bake Off on Netflix to relax. That's one of my go-to like feel-good shows. All right, what about Sakura?
I think the one that most impacted me was the investments, the compound interest. Helped me understand the credit scores and like the differences between interest and regular interest. And even like no, we talked about differences between credit cards and debit cards. So I was able to apply that when I got my own money and was able to get it onto like a debit card. And again, just like to understand how stuff works more when you're buying it in the real world.
That's great. Yes, I love all of the personal finance lessons, especially. I think that's something you can start applying immediately, and I'm happy that you learned from that and you're actually applying it. Samaya. Shyla. All right. She said, since most of us are either 18 or about to be 18 and soon to be attending college, taxes stood out to me because they are really helpful, and many individuals haven't been taught a lot about them. So yes, I want to make a distinction. 18, yes, the more important thing is you have the right to vote now, and you should exercise that right and perform your civic duty. Also, taxes is not necessarily something you have to file once you turn 18. It depends on how much you're earning. What is your earned income? So I want to clarify that difference just to make sure everyone knows that it's not necessarily related to age directly. It's more so based on your earned income. Let's go to Susan.
Okay. Well, the lesson that stuck out to me the most was the accountability one, because I especially liked how you highlighted that in that lesson, that taking accountability isn't just dealing with your actions, but dealing with what happens after or because of those actions. And I feel like taking accountability, a lot of the people don't like admitting, a lot of times people don't like admitting, hey, I was wrong in this situation. So I think learning how to take accountability is especially important, because it also applies to like many different parts of your life, whether it be school, if you're having like projects with someone, at work, if you did maybe like a mistake during work. Taking accountability is just something that I believe like should be talked about more and should be normalized, because a lot of times people find it like bad, like, hey, I was wrong. But yeah, I really like that lesson.
Perfect. Yes, I think we should be holding each other and ourselves accountable. I like that. Jocelyn.
One class that stood out to me was probably the grit and resilience one, because I think for me personally, there has been moments where I've been really stressed or about something, and I've wanted to give up, but I look up to what my future can hold and like realize that I might have a rocky road in front of me, but giving up shouldn't be the answer.
Right. Soraya. Everything was interesting, and thank you for teaching them to us, but exploring grit and resilience stood out. And I've never thought about them the way before. It made me realize how important these traits are in facing challenges and moving forward. All right, Vincent.
Me personally, one thing that stood out to me was the exploring natural strengths one. It really made me think about what I was good at, and it made me be able to reflect upon it and sort of improve upon the things that I already do well, while also being able to see like the things I may not do so well, but I know I can improve on now.
Perfect. Let's go to Jennifer. Something that caught her attention was personal responsibility involves making and fulfilling commitments and obligations, being aware of consequences of our actions and decisions, and taking responsibility for them. This allows us to develop self-esteem, confidence, credibility, and achieve our goals effectively. Perfect. All right. We actually went through everyone in the class, except the alumni, because I want to be wary of the time as well. But I think you guys touched on so many different topics, and just the fact that I think all of you use more than one sentence to actually describe your experience or what stuck out to you. I think it has a lot of the stuff actually meant something to you, and it actually sunk in. So I am happy about that. And it's great to hear from all of you. I think you should participate more often, and you all have unique perspectives and really good responses to all the answers. So going forward, really encourage you to speak up, whether it's in this kind of setting, in class, or in college, or in work going forward. All right, let's go to the next slide. I think we talked about these. Some of you even mentioned these in your answer, right? Grit and resilience was the most common one I heard. Changing habits, the 4 agreements, a bunch of you talked about that as well. Leadership traits and values, and habits, definitely everyone, or a lot of you talked about changing habits as well. All right, let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so go ahead, since we've already talked about all of this, you already gave me an answer. Go ahead and take a few seconds to write down which of the classes stood out the most to you. So take about 30 seconds. All right, let's go to the next slide. So the answer was just which one, so hopefully it didn't take too long to answer that. The practical tools for success. We talked about taxes, right? That's the one answer that jumped out to me from a lot of you guys. Problem solving, not a lot of people talked about it, but I heard a few answers about that, about thinking about how different people think about things as well, and taking that into account as well. Soraya mentioned the interest, the compound interest, credit cards. Someone else also mentioned credit cards. Business communication, yes, that's obviously going to be relevant for all of you going forward. And exploring your natural strengths was probably not as popular as some of the other answers, but definitely something you probably have a very good idea about that, inherently speaking. I think you just sometimes need to visualize that. Let's go to the next slide. All right, go ahead and take a minute to write this answer in your workbook. Which of these tools have been the most useful to you, and how do you plan to continue using it in the future? So take a minute to go ahead and answer that question. Let's go to the next slide, please. All right, we want to for all of you to continue to live inspired. And this, I actually didn't know about this, the Pygmalion effect either. It is, and I heard about it the first time when we talked about it yesterday. It's a psychological phenomenon where high expectations lead to improved performance. So, and I have a different version of this, which I kind of could relate to when I read the sentence. So if I am working out, and if I'm working out on my own, it really depends how I'm feeling that day. If I'm feeling great, like I'll like go for it, try to like, beat my record and just push myself, right? But if I'm not feeling so great coming into it, then I'm just more like, I'm just gonna give it my best, not exactly thinking about like blazing a trail over here, right? But just getting it done on that day. However, if I am working out with someone else, or it's a group exercise class, and there's a coach who's telling you to do better or pushing you to like, all right, up that by like, your intensity, but just 1% more. I do actually tend to do better regardless of how I'm feeling that day. Whether I came into the class feeling tired, just like weary, or not inspired, or just like dragging my feet into it, just showing up, or whether I walked into the class with like full of energy and be like, all right, I'm looking forward to this one. Regardless of that, if I'm in that moment and that's what's happening, and there's people around me who are to my left and right on the treadmill pushing for the same goal, right? And the coach like yelling at you, like, you can do this, like, give me 1% more on this. I don't even think about all of these things when I'm in the middle of the workout, and I do better because the coach is expecting better of me. I am now all of a sudden expecting better of myself because I'm subconsciously competing with people to my left and right, or just the whole effect of, right, like, I'm in a group of people and I might be getting observed. I'm going to give it my best. So it kind of is similar. I think that's the way I could relate to it. Maybe all of you have different ways of relating with this, or you never thought of this before, but maybe we'll consciously think about it now. Going into the next thing, when there are higher expectations, you have improved performance. In another way to turn this around, when I am working with a team and I'm leading the team at work, if I from the get-go set the standard and I tell people this is what I'm expecting, and I set a high bar, I get slightly more from even the lagging performers in the team. So everyone puts in that little bit of extra effort. So they are improving themselves each time. So you can use this both ways, right? Either as a person who's leading the whole team and trying to get better from the team, or you yourself, how you're holding yourself accountable. So bottom line, believe in yourself, right? That's what it says at the bottom over there. I think that's a step number one, is you should believe in yourself first. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, go ahead and take a minute to answer, how can living by high expectations for yourself and others inspire those around you to grow and succeed? So some people are saying no. So I don't know, maybe Dan, this is something we want to make sure it wasn't part of their workbook, so they don't have to submit it. So we'll make a note of that, guys. All right, let's go to the next slide, slide 11. Thank you. Before we end that over there, and I do want to thank all of you you did this on your own, right? You heard about this program somewhere, read about it however you found out about this, right? You made the decision that, yes, I'm gonna do this. It's something extra outside of, right, your expected curriculum for your homework or whatever it might be. But you all decided to take that step and be like, no, I want to try this and see where